So we all pretty much know that Vespas are on the more expensive end of the scooter spectrum. So maybe if you're considering a Vespa, you've thought about maybe picking up a used one. So I actually purchased both my Vespas pre-owned, and I learned a lot of lessons about how to go about doing this. And there's a lot of things you can do even before you actually go and look at it and test drive it. There's a lot of things you can do ahead of time to prepare. So I'm going to share with you the things that I learned that I found really helpful when I was seeking out a used Vespa. So if that's what you're considering right now, this is the video for you. I hope you find this helpful. Thank you again so much for watching. All right, first things first, you want to make sure you do your research. So it's really important that you have a good idea of exactly what it is you're looking for before you start looking at pre-owned Vespas. So determine what size engine that you want, how many cc's you want it to have. Are you just hard set on getting a Vespa? Are you open to the idea of other brands? Consider what kinds of accessories that you definitely know you want, whether that be a windscreen or a top box or anything else. Take all these things into account as you are considering which kind of scooter that you want to get. I also highly recommend you drop by an actual local scooter shop. In my experience, these are not like used car dealers. For the most part, they are very supportive and helpful, and they can answer a lot of your questions about all different kinds of scooters. If it's a Vespa shop in particular, they'll answer all your questions about Vespas for sure. So take a look at the shop, talk to people, talk to other people you know who might have a Vespa, get as much input as you can. Do online research and just find out what there is out there. The other thing I think is really a good idea is figure out exactly what you want and then find out how much it's going to cost you new. How much would it be brand new if you got every single thing you wanted? Because there's a chance that you'll find a decent used one, but there's so many other things that you want to add that by the time you're done, it actually might end up costing about what a new one would cost. Another thing that's really important when you're doing your research and you're considering a pre-owned Vespa is you need to know that there's always risk involved with buying something pre-owned. It's a good idea to have a mechanic take a look at it beforehand, but even then, you're not really sure what the history is with 100% accuracy, and you're going a bit on faith. So you're taking some risk. You have to decide how risk adverse you are when it comes to buying a used scooter. The other thing, and a benefit of getting new, is you would get the Vespa warranty along with the new scooter, and that is probably valuable and worth something. So weigh the pros and cons and make sure that you know what you want and see if you can find something pre-owned, but then make sure you're comparing it to what it would cost you new as you get going on that. Okay, so you've done your research. You know exactly what it is you're looking for. Now it's time to check out some pre-owned Vespa listings. So where do you find this kind of thing? I think the first stop is probably your local scooter shop again. I think going over there, you might find that they have a trade-in, something that maybe doesn't have a whole lot of miles on it. The benefit of buying pre-owned from your local dealer is that they've probably serviced it well in order to prepare it for sale. So I think that's probably your best bet as far as starting. They might have what you're looking for. Of course, stock is going to be quite limited there. A lot of times people don't trade in their scooters, they sell them privately, which brings me to my next place. So the other place, and the one that I have had the most success with, is Facebook Marketplace. So Facebook Marketplace, my favorite thing about it is when I have seen a listing, I can start a dialogue through messaging through Facebook Marketplace and get a lot of my questions answered about the scooter before I actually make the trip to go out and see it. So if I'm asking questions and something comes up and I'm like, this is not going to work, I haven't really wasted their time or my own by driving out and checking it out. So I like to be able to do that on Facebook Marketplace. The third place that I would really recommend looking is a website called Cycle Trader. So they have a lot of motorcycles on Cycle Trader, but I've also found quite a few Vespas and scooters on Cycle Trader as well. Cycle Trader is a big national website, and the one thing I found about Cycle Trader is a lot of the Vespas are not necessarily close to where you live. They might be, but at the same time, if you really find what you're looking for, I think it might be worth the road trip to go pick it up. Obviously, you would want to know a lot before you make that effort, But I do think there are some really good quality listings on Cycle Trader to check out. With all of these things, one of the most important things is that you remain patient. Sometimes it can be weeks or even months before a decent Vespa shows up in any of these listings or in any of these places. And so it's possible you're waiting and looking and waiting and looking, and then one pops up and you just want to jump on it. I would recommend just slowing down, because even though it might be real dry for a long time, if you wait and you're willing to be patient, other listings do pop up. At least that's been my experience. So make sure you don't make a rash decision and just jump on the first thing you see. This is why in the first step about doing your research and knowing exactly what you want, that's why that first step is so important, because when it comes to actually purchasing a pre-owned one, you don't want to make too many compromises. You might be willing to make a few, but not too many compromises. So be patient, really wait, and just keep looking, regularly looking, and I'm willing to bet that something will pop up that will work for you. All right, you've done your research, you've started looking at listings. What happens now if you see something that might work? Well, that's when you really have to consider the questions you want to ask. Again, well before you ever see the Vespa or scooter. So when it comes to this, the questions that I found most helpful is, first of all, I like to ask, what is the history of this scooter and why are you selling it? Now keep in mind, there are people out there who are just simply not going to be honest. I tend to just take what they say at face value. I like to know if there's sort of a story behind it. Sometimes people have to get rid of scooters because they have health problems or money problems, things along those lines. And to me, it's just helpful to know that information. I like hearing answers that sound like I have to let it go, as opposed to I just never ride it, or I found it in my grandma's garage, or those kinds of answers. I really like to hear it kills me to do this, but I need to let it go kind of answer, because to me, that shows that they want to keep it and they probably took good care of it, but they just couldn't. So other just kind of very particular things that you want to make sure to ask. If it's not in the listing, it's good to know the mileage. You want to make sure they have the brown master key. The more modern Vespas have a brown master key, and without that key, if you lose your regular keys, you can't very easily get a new one. That master key sort of programs any other key. So you really want to have that. Make sure they have a title. Sadly, that not everyone keeps track of these things. I wouldn't risk getting a Vespa that didn't have a title. There's this chance that it was stolen, and you just don't really want to mess with something like that. So I ask about the history. I want to make sure that those particular things are with it. Also, ask if there's any gear or accessories included. That's another sign if they have a lot of extra, or if they're willing to add on some of those extra things. It's nice to know what kinds of things that they bought in order to have their scooter. Again, it's showing a certain level of affection for it, which to me also shows a sign of care. So those are some questions you can ask ahead of time. The more information you can get before you actually get out there, the better off you are. So the last thing, very important when it comes to this conversation with the seller, is make sure you don't get attached. You don't want to be rushed into something, and maybe you found something that you just think would be great. Don't get too attached, because it's quite possible it'll sell before you get a chance to see it. Again, this goes back to just being patient and waiting for the right one. If the one you thought you really wanted sold, you need to just accept the fact that it wasn't the right one and continue to look and wait. So those are the questions I recommend asking before you actually go and see the scooter. Okay, this last thing actually might be somewhat surprising to you. Sometimes people will see a very low mileage Vespa that might be a little bit older, but the mileage is really low. So that's actually not necessarily a great sign. It's possible just for lack of use, there's gonna be a lot of things you have to replace right away. Now, if the price is low enough and you think it's worth it, go ahead and do it. Just factor in all the things you might have to replace just because it's been sitting. A happy scooter is one that gets ridden regularly, and also one that has just been sitting. perhaps was not cared for very carefully. And in general, like at least the battery, probably tires, lots of things are going to have to be taken care of. So low mileage, you might get really excited about it. Yesterday I actually saw a listing. It was a 2012 Vespa. It only had about 600 miles on it. I think you kind of pass by that one unless you are really mechanically inclined and feel like you can go in there and replace a lot of parts right out the gate. The thing that I think matters much more than mileage are some of the things I've referred to already. I want to see signs of love. I want to see, did they invest in crash bars because they just couldn't bear the thought of hurting the bodywork on their Vespa? Did they get a top case? Did they get an actual Vespa top case, kind of going beyond just the utilitarian, but they cared about how it looked? How clean is it? What is the quality of the battery that's in it? There are definitely better brands of batteries and there are cheaper brands of batteries. So what kind of battery did they get that they put in there? Service records, having service records, and that's just a sign that they took care of their vehicle, they had it serviced, and they had the presence of mind to actually keep those records. To me, these are all what I would call signs of love. Signs of love show a care for the scooter. I think that is significantly more important than mileage. When the miles seem reasonable for the year, I'd say go ahead and go for it. But if the mileage seems ridiculously low for how old it is, I think that's kind of a red flag. So signs of love matter more than mileage. All right, so now I want to hear from you. Did you successfully buy a pre-owned Vespa? Have you ever bought a pre-owned Vespa or scooter and it turned out to be a really bad decision? Did you look into buying something pre-owned and determine that it really wasn't worth it and you'd rather go new? Did I miss any good questions or tips that you would recommend when it comes to buying a used Vespa that you would look into well before you actually see it? I think this could be really helpful for a lot of people who are in the market for a Vespa, perhaps want to bring the budget down for it a little bit. So I would love all your feedback. Make sure you comment below. Also, make sure to subscribe because I plan on doing a follow-up video for what you should actually do when you do see this pre-owned Vespa live and in person. The test drive, the inspection, all of those things. So make sure you subscribe. You don't want to miss that. So this was just your preliminary research, and we will continue to be as helpful as possible as you seek to join the scooter life. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. Please comment below and subscribe. I'll see you next time.